Okay, great. All
Ooh.
right, Anna, whenever you're ready, I'm so excited to hear your amazing poem, Dead Girl.
Thank you. This is Dead Girl. This afternoon, you said to your roommate, I think I could be a corpse. One of the ones in the Brit Mysteries where you get to be a bitch in the first, like, 3 scenes, or be the tragically fated lover you're super bummed about because you kind of know from the get that she's gonna get strangled. And then, you know, they're dead, and they've got that dead girl look with the parted lips and the big eyes, and makeup department did their skin like spirits are swimming in their shallows. And they're still like weird hot and like very obviously alive because, right, they're actors, but their hair is streaming out in soft Ophelian silk. And maybe it would be peaceful to lie down in that water and let the stream flow smooth your skin like a worry stone in the palm of the brook. Sometimes when you're in the bath or a pool or something, you see your hand floating out in front of you of its own accord. Your muscles accidentally still. Of course, they tense as soon as you notice this. But for that breath, you are the girl in the water, Ophelia in an infinite and insufferable line of Ophelias. Nothing. You believe that if you lie on the riverbank, loose flowers will tangle your hair like spilt watercolor. Your eyes will glass over in that still, still, dead girl look. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to hear it out loud. It's amazing.
Oh, thank
Um,
you so much.
I'm gonna start off by just quickly sharing with people your page where we can find your work if you want to read it in print. And then maybe people can formulate some questions or thoughts if they have any. So this is Anna Laura's poem. I really encourage you to read it in print because it's beautiful and fantastic. And you can see the amazing formatting. Um, so Anna, I'll start off. I would just love to know about your creative process a little bit, if you're willing to share.
Oh my goodness. I am I'm a I'm a I'm a big like spurt writer, which I think is that's like a terrible way of describing it. But I will sit down and like write in kind of like crazy long spurts. I'm gonna stop saying that
No, I
word.
like it. I think it's great.
um but I think I tend to do like poem in large chunk, and then I'll kind of go in and craft it late. Like I'll do couplets, or I'll do line breaks, or I'll futz with it a little bit more later. But I tend to go in long kind of quick quick runs.
Amazing. That sounds very fun. Okay, so because I'm a little bit biased and we are technically a horror magazine, even though it's a bit of a broad definition, I want to know, do you like horror movies? You don't have
I
to say yes.
love horror
You
movies.
do? Okay,
Yeah,
amazing.
I love them so much.
That's
I love
awesome.
horror
Okay,
movies. I love the horror genre. I'm a very big fan.
that's amazing. I love to hear it. What's a favorite movie? Not necessarily the favorite, but what's a favorite?
Oh, Blair Witch Project is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Awesome. Good
Um,
choice.
Also, this is not necessarily, well, it kind of is. There's this really incredible book which I consider to be horror, though it's not technically of the horror genre, called Wake Siren by Nina McLaughlin, and it's a really gorgeous retelling um of Ovid's Metamorphoses. From basically, she just takes all of the women characters and sort of rewrites all of their stories. And usually I'm not I'm not into that kind of stuff. But this is really gorgeous, and it's stunningly violent and horrifying, because those stories are stunningly violent and horrifying. And I would highly recommend it to anyone who is not squeamish. There's infinite trigger warnings on it, but it is one of my favorite terrifying pieces of literature.
That sounds incredible. Why don't you put it in the chat? I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of people would want to read that. That sounds amazing. Does anybody have any questions or comments or ideas or thoughts, or love the Blair Witch Project, or love Blair Witch, or I don't know, have other things they want to say?
Yeah, I would love to talk about Blair Witch Project with you.
Okay. Amazing. Thank you for putting that in the chat. I definitely want to read that book. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, this feels like the right crowd for it.
I agree. I agree. Especially our moms.
So true. Hi, mama.
Okay, well, thank you so much. That was beautiful. And please do go check out Anna's piece. It's glorious and wonderful, and I feel so honored to have been able to publish it.
Thank you so much. I feel so honored to be in the first issue of this magazine. It's so gorgeous. Thank you so much.
you. Thank you so much. Kendall, hello. How
Hi.
are you?
I'm great. I am recovering from COVID, so you might hear it in my voice,
Oh,
but
no. Are
generally
you
pretty good.
okay? You feeling a little better?
Yeah, definitely better. Not
It's
100%,
going around. It's
I know.
definitely going around. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for making it.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so do you feel ready? Should I go ahead and read your bio?
Go for it.
Okay, amazing. I'm so excited to talk with you about your piece. Okay, Kendall Geisel, am I saying that right? Okay,
right.
Kendall Geisel is the production assistant at the nonprofit and environmental publisher Island Press, as well as a graduate from the George Washington University with a BA in English. She lives in Washington, D.C. with roommate and cat Ricky. You can find her reading at a farmer's market or at a concert. Her favorite horror movies are Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Jennifer's Body. And luckily, we get to talk about Jennifer's Body today.
We do.
So do you feel ready to start?
Sure. I will preface with, I guess, a content warning. I'll be talking about the sexual violence in the pieces that I'm looking at. And I guess I'll walk through how I arrived to this piece after I read it.
That sounds great.
But yeah, I'll just jump right into it. So
Okay.
this is Hell as a Teenage Girl, The Horrors of Growing Up. Got a tampon? Asked Jennifer through a mouthful of blood during the climactic face-off between besties in Karen Kusama and Diablo Cody's horror comedy film Jennifer's Body. She is sporting a bloodied prom dress and a metal rod through her torso, and she still manages a quip about plugging. It's not a bad summation of how it feels to be a teenage girl, even outside of menstruation. Female adolescence is nightmarish. One can only grin and bear it, like flippantly asking for a tampon while bleeding profusely from an abdomen wound. Pubescent girls live out a body horror movie in real time, undergoing a monstrous transformation of flesh and blood just as the rest of the world is becoming aware of their changing bodies. Desire is twofold. Teenage girls encounter external unwanted sexualization of their bodies, as well as their own internal carnal urges, paradoxically deemed base by society. It's a slew of ordeals that they don't consent to, with the threat of sexual violence ever present. This ambivalence of being reduced to a sexual body, yet being told that sex is bad, of fearing violation, yet wanting to experience life uninhibited, is enough to rupture one's identity. Cinema scholar Barbara Creed, in her definition of the monstrous feminine, describes its many archetypical faces: archaic mother, monstrous womb, vampire, witch, monstrous mother, castrator, and possessed body. To that list, I add the two-faced teenage girl, a variation of the possessed body. Both victim and monster, an unconsenting creature in the clutch of coming of age and burgeoning sexuality. This face, or body rather, is perfectly personified by two fictional adolescent female characters, Natalie Waite in Shirley Jackson's Gothic novel Hangs a Man, and the titular Jennifer Check in Jennifer's Body. If hell is a teenage girl, as the opening line of the latter declares, then the boundless horror genre, crawling with female monsters, is the voyage through that hellscape. The trope of the double, a pillar of the horror genre, represents one's fragmented personhood, repressed ambivalence, and conflicting moralities. This paradoxical duo of self and other is engendered by female sexuality, which, as genre theorist Stephen Neal asserts, renders women desirable, but also threatening to men, which constitutes the real problem that horror cinema exists to explore, and which constitutes also and ultimately that which is really monstrous. In maturation, a girl feels the patriarchal pull of wanting to desire and to be desired, as well as fearing sexualization and the repercussions of having sex. It's a lose-lose scenario. For Natalie, this double is the strange girl Tony something at her college that suddenly manifests as a figment of her imagination. And Jennifer's is the succubus demon that possesses her after a ritual sacrifice gone wrong. Natalie, from Hangs a Man, and her creator, Jackson, would probably disavow my monstrous classification of the character, but Natalie is undeniably an outsider spiraling into madness, brutally aware of her transition into adulthood. Hangs a Man, focused less on plot and more on the musings of an unreliable narrator, follows our protagonist in 3 parts. From childhood home to liberal arts college to surreal escape adventure into the woods with her imaginary friend Tony. While not a blood and guts horror like Jennifer's Body, the novel showcases the psychological terror of existential despondency. Natalie, an intelligent and reserved girl of 17, lives inside her head in a world of her creation, plagued by the poignant searching longings of adolescence, as well as her own suicidal ideations. Her narrative's tethers to reality fray over the course of the short novel. As she grows lonelier at school, she becomes more uncertain of her identity. Perhaps she is actually a madwoman locked away, a wattily Nate or a natally Wat, or a waitress or prostitute imagining Natalie, or an old murderer in a detective noir. Ultimately, what is worse is the frightful conviction of perhaps being in a reality no more than Natalie Waite, college girl, daughter to Arnold, and unable to brush away the solidity of this world, but forced to deal with it as actual and dreary. Real life is more hopeless than anything she could have dreamed up. She begins writing in her diary to an idealized version of herself. Dearest darling Natalie, you are the best and they will know it someday, and they will be afraid of you. Cracks begin to appear in her character until finally she breaks. And enter the culmination of her internal turmoil. Tony, a character androgynously named and untroubled in the face of isolation and danger. Tony's materialization illustrates Natalie's peaking alterity and desire to be someone else. Someone spontaneous who ignores mean girls in school and talks back to threatening men in diners, who doesn't care whether she sits on the steps of people who don't invite her. Someone who is able to deal with the traumas of growing up as a girl. Though decisive and deceivingly mature herself, Tony's appearance reflects how ambivalent and apprehensive Natalie is as she stands on the precipice of adulthood. In an unsent letter to poet Howard Nemerov, Jackson identified this ambivalence as the misunderstood novel's central theme. I am writing about ambivalence of the spirit and the mind, not the sex. Then it is fear itself, fear of self, that I am writing about. Fear and guilt and their destruction of identity. It is this conflict surrounding sex that causes Natalie's splintering of self. Though her novels are largely lacking in sex, and she herself denied it as a subject matter, Jackson did write about sexuality, albeit in veiled language. Natalie's father asks at the start of the novel, "Daughter mine, has anyone corrupted you?" ominously hinting at future events and the general opinion on sex at the time. At school, she has a slight crush on her English professor, who is married to a pregnant housewife, not much older than Natalie, which is another omen of what could become of her. And at the start of the book, she ponders if this was going to be a day that she would remember and look back upon, the day when that happened, insinuating her anticipation of losing her virginity. Sex and inextricably sexual danger is the subtext of Hangs a Man, where it's simply the overt text in Jennifer's body. For Jennifer, unlike Natalie, sex is power, or so she wants to believe. Hot cheerleader archetype to the point of caricature, Jennifer drags her childhood best friend, Anita Needy Lesnecki, to a small town bar to see indie rock band Low Shoulder. They're just boys, morsels, we have all the power, Jennifer tells Needy in reference to the eyeliner-clad band members, who in turn ponder Jennifer's virginity status amongst themselves, and of whom Needy is rightfully wary. Later, when the venue bursts into flames mid-show, the two are separated as the band lures Jennifer into their van, leaving Needy transfixed. I watched her get into that van and I knew something awful was going to happen. Later that night, Jennifer appears at Needy's, bloodied and vomiting black goo, grotesquely crouched on the kitchen floor in a miniskirt. And in the days that follow, she is hotter than ever, seducing and then ravaging the boys of Devil's Kettle. And I mean literally consuming. With the demonic double newly possessing her, Jennifer must cannibalize to regenerate her power, i.e. clear skin, flawless hair, superhuman strength. When Jennifer doesn't eat, she grows weak, vacillating between feeling scrumptious, like a god, and feeling drained, like one of the normal girls, stuck in a cycle not dissimilar to menstruation. Are you PMSing? Needy asked her when she hasn't fed, harking back to the themes of menstruation that we saw at the start of this essay. Jennifer is split in two, like Natalie, demon versus girl, and though her demeanor isn't inconsistent with how she acted pre-possession, she is now at the whims of her hunger. Her sexuality is clearly a weapon, but she can't seem to figure out if it's aimed at the boys she's killing or at herself. Jennifer's cannibalistic sexcapades tear apart the town's families and sense of normalcy, making her sexuality as taboo as it is titillating. More taboo even than female sexuality is queer sexuality. The relationship between Natalie and Tony, even if imagined, is hard to describe as strictly platonic, with them sleeping in the same bed and running away together. Similarly, Jennifer and Needy's closeness is coded as more than friends, lesbigay, as one classmate puts it, which is pretty famous with the fans of this cult film. And they eventually kiss. It's actually during this scene of intimacy that the curtain is pulled back and Jennifer finally divulges to her friend what happened that night after the fire. Low Shoulder, in their endeavor toward commercial fame, attempt to sacrifice Jennifer to Satan, but with her being a non-virgin and the ritual requiring a virgin, it goes awry and she instead becomes possessed. This incident can unambiguously be read as sexual assault, the thread of which burdens all young girls and threads through both of these texts. Needy describes Low Shoulder's tour vehicle as a white molester van. Jennifer outright asks if they're rapists. They take her to the woods, tie her down, and repeatedly stab her as she pleads with them to stop. This assault fragments Jennifer and makes a monster of her. Of course, nobody believes Needy's assertions of the band's exploitations or Jennifer's possessions, and she must avenge Jennifer alone. As the credits roll, ultimately, we see that Needy has killed the members of Low Shoulder, effectively establishing Jennifer's body as a rape revenge film, in my opinion. Jennifer also seeks vengeance against all men that want her, not just her abusers, and it is her demonic powers that allow her to do so. Natalie's assault, however, is more inferred than Jennifer's, but still unmistakable. At the end of the novel's first part, she's lured into the woods, just as Jennifer was, by a strange older man at her family's party. I used to play here when I was a child, she tells the man, and suddenly she realizes the danger is here, in here, as they stepped inside and were lost in the darkness. It is no longer the innocent playground of her youth. Is he going to touch me, she thinks, sickened, then black. And the next day she wakes to the mantra all too familiar to victims of assault. I will not think about it. It doesn't matter. I don't remember. Nothing happened. Nothing that I remember happened. It is devastating, even if unspoken, and informs Natalie's depression throughout her first semester. In the book's final scene, Natalie returns to a forest, a setting that mirrors the one where she was assaulted, persuaded by Tony to take a bus miles away from campus. In returning to a spot that symbolizes her trauma, she is able to face her fears. In the dark, she loses Tony. She calls to her, but she doesn't get an answer. She had defeated her own enemy, her double, her internal ambivalence, and death wish in the face of growing up. The scene echoes that first traumatic event, but ends differently, with Natalie safely emerging from the woods, at last whole again. Natalie hitchhikes home with an older couple who affirm that the outward enemy of sexual danger has not yet been totally overcome. Can't ever tell what'll happen to a girl alone along there, warns the man. The patriarchal evil is not defeated, but is as least known. But it is Natalie who is forced to change, not the world around her, and she re-enters her college town, now alone and grown up and powerful, and not at all afraid. She has reached adulthood and has chosen to continue on, as treacherous as she has found it to be. Jennifer never gets to quite come of age, and is instead slain by Needy with a box knife to the heart. She is defeated to stop the killings, as revenge for killing Needy's boyfriend, and subtextually for her promiscuity, for trespassing the boundaries enforced on a teenage girl's behavior. Be desirable, but not too desirous, lest you become monstrous. In Jennifer's stead, Needy's climactic coming of age marks the reconciliation of self, an acceptance of the disparate parts of herself in a society that views women as polarized ends of the Madonna horror dichotomy. I don't know who Needy Lesnicki is anymore. I'm a different person now, she declares, now grown up and powerful like Natalie. In the fight with Jennifer, Needy is bitten and absorbs some of her powers, as well as her transgressions, as she is sent off to an institution presumably for Jennifer's crimes in addition to her own. The double has been defeated, but the internal conflict lingers. In the end, however, the monstrous part of Needy is embraced, an amendment to horror movies like The Exorcist, in which traditional order is restored at the end. Though Jennifer does not make it past 18, she is survived by her best friend who carries a part of her into maturation, just as Natalie carries a part of Tony with her out of the woods. It is with these multitudes and frictions that they are complete, like a broken teacup repaired with gold liqueur. Two become one, the gap between doubles closes, and we reach catharsis. All the feelings brought on by girlhood and the patriarchal pressures, guilt, fear, shame, rage, lust, are not so much exorcised from the girl in adulthood, but rather acknowledged and accepted, grisly mess and all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kendall. That was fantastic. I would love to hear about your process. As you were saying, you wanted to talk about it after. Do you want to chat about that?
Sure. I can just briefly talk about it since I know this was a long one. But basically, I started seeing a lot of trends in media that I was consuming about sexual assault and violence. And I started to notice a trope where the protagonist or the survivor experienced a splitting of the self post-event, sort of like the you that was not assaulted carried on, and then the you that was assaulted split off. Namely in non-horror media, like Chanel Miller's Know My Name. She talks about being Chanel Miller at home, just the girl that she grew up as, and then Jane Doe in her case against her assaulter, and that sort of rupture of identity. And then in TV shows like I May Destroy You, the protagonist experiences a sexual assault event, and there's a really beautiful finale that I don't want to spoil if you haven't seen, but the episode title is Ego Death, and we see like 3 different versions of her reaching healing and finding vengeance sort of against her assaulter. I really recommend it to everyone. And just other pieces of media. And so when I read Hangs a Man, it really made it clear that that was a common trope, even if it wasn't explicit. And then I saw your submission request for the first issue, and it sort of came together when we emailed about it. And Jennifer's Body has always been a favorite of mine, but I've rarely viewed it through this lens. I more just watch it growing up because of the scene where they make out, obviously. But it became something a lot more than that when I wrote this piece. So yeah, I really like where this took me.
Well, it's a fantastic piece. And I think that your addition to Barbara Creed's types or typologies of abjection is really special, because I think what it does is address that liminality that she speaks so specifically to, that there's this kind of void that opens in yourself after an experience of assault, where this empty space now exists between your two halves, and that space is abject. So I was so excited to read that idea. I think it's just, could write a whole book on it.
Thank you.
So if anybody has questions, formulate them now, because I want to give you a little look at Kendall's piece on our website. So you can find it, let's see, right here. Okay, that's Anna's. Here's Kendall's piece. And it's really complex. So I think it would be great to read it in print and really dig in. There's a lot there. Does anybody have any questions for Kendall that they want to ask, or comments? Tori loves Hangs a Man, so that's amazing that you got to chat about that. Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Kendall, and thank you for your beautiful piece. I'm so excited that we were able to include it. Nancy, do you feel ready?
Oh yeah, I'm so ready. Thank you.
Amazing. Okay, great. I'm so excited to share Nancy's piece with everybody. Little backstory. You were the reason that my web developer and I had to figure out how to incorporate super complex formatting into our website, which was such an amazing challenge for us, because the internet does not like poetry. And I was so committed to the fact that we maintain formatting exactly as submitted. And so we came up with a way, and I'm so happy that you gave us that challenge, because it opened up a whole world of like formatting ideas for us. So
I had no idea. Oh my God, thank you so much.
It's awesome. It's so cool. You guys will see what I mean when I share it with you. So yeah, it's great. I absolutely love it.
I did not know that. Thank you. And thank you to Anna, Laura, and Kendall for these great readings and amazing pieces. And I'm gonna go back and like read both of them more in depth later. Thank you everyone for being here too. And Ariel, I had no idea. Like I'm so sorry that
no.
It sounds like it took a lot of work to incorporate.
It's so important. It was like, you create a space online for poetry. That means there are a certain set of challenges that you have to figure out, and that's the kind of stuff I love.
Okay, good. Thank you for telling me. That's incredible. I'm so appreciative. I'll dive right in.
Nancy, I forgot. Can I read your bio real quick?
Yes, sorry, go on.
No, I totally spaced. Okay. I'm gonna read Nancy's bio because she's amazing. Nan grew up in Shanghai and near Detroit. Her debut poetry collection, Favorite Daughter, won the Right Bloody Press Book Prize and was published in 2017. Nancy's poetry, plays, and prose are published by The Offing, Poets.org, The Margins, A24, and others. She is a Sewanee Scholar and a Tin House Watering Hole VONA and Pink Door Fellow. She has a poetry MFA from NYU. She works at a cemetery. Couldn't miss that bio.
Thanks so much. Thank you. I'm so excited to share this piece. I've never read it out loud before to to like an audience. So this is really special. Thank you for being here, everyone, and joining me. It's called Nancy Drew in the Case of the Oriental Ghost, and I modeled it after the actual Nancy Drew novels, in which like I put a byline by Carolyn Keene, which is the name of the ghost authors and ghost writers for the entire Nancy Drew series. So on the page it says Nancy Drew in the Case of the Oriental Ghost by Carolyn Keene. Prologue. I'm Nancy. I do not own my reflection. Chapter 1. Bess says the lake is haunted. Come on, Nan, let's leave. It's awful here. And George jumps out from the reeds. Don't be a child, Bess. They're just rumors. Just thimble words, tiny gusts. 17 in a pretty town of nothing. No trouble we can get into that our parents can't help us out of. What about all the reports, I say, as we head back to my car, blue shine and slice of neon in the dark? Oh gosh, forget it. We'll never get on Twilight Zone. I plug in my keys to a growl, and in the rearview mirror, I see her for the first time. Chapter 2. I believe there is an answer to every question. Teenage sleuth, strawberry blonde, cornflower blue, widowed father. I am a question. My reflection is the answer. She is 9 or 12 or 16, rewrites my hair black, blue eyes lying brown, Chinese girl who does not like me very much, or coffee. I drink dark roast. She scowls from the silver coffee pot. Why are you there and not me? Chapter 3. Our English teacher's having an affair. Bess gets a secret admirer. Ned asks for my help finding his father's missing Rolex. So many mysteries in the gleaming, dull town I live in. Used to wish something would build and then blow up here. God, please, just let something happen to me for once. Chapter 4. Relentless is she, in windows, on the backs of spoons, in rain puddles, in the bathroom mirror, anywhere glass cuts shadow in half. Are you light? Are you imagination? Are you optics? Are you me? She blinks bottomless pits. Where are you from? You're not from around here, are you? I mean, you don't look it. Chapter 5. Test run. I light candles, place a mirror at the end of my bed, watch her, watch me, watch her until I fall asleep. What are you doing? George thinks I'm going mad. What I'm good at. I write it all down in my casebook. Test run. I take a photograph of my reflection. My face strange now, a few shades too light, hair a dapple of faded gold, eyebrows thinning to air, a half-erased girl. Chapter 6. In Oriental, maybe she doesn't know English, Bess suggests. The windows rattle. She is glaring. I look to the floor. I think she does, Bess. We never should have gone ghost hunting, George says. She swings down from the top bunk, puts on a record. Who knew one of us would get possessed? I'm not possessed, I protest. I told you we should have left, Bess fumes. Look, now Nan's stuck with this. Chapter 7. No recent deaths, no Chinese, no Oriental girls disappeared, nothing in the news. She's caught in every shine and glimmer, stares at me in the library as I dig through old newspapers. I'm sorry. I crump my fingers into a ball and pull them apart. I'm so sorry you died. There is an answer to every question. It's too late to go back now. Chapter 8. The day after I discovered Chelsea B stole Ned's watch, I push the mirror against the wall and sit in front of it. Mine's Nancy. What's yours? Her head tilts. I stay still. She looks away when I do. She walks when I do. Her face doesn't budge. She wears my skirts. She plaits her hair like I do. She gets up to a house, still asleep, to make coffee and toast the same time as I do. She dallies with her friends like I do. She solves cases like I do. She hunts mysteries, is a mystery, lives in everything gleaming, does not speak, stares endless, rewrites everything of mine. What's yours? Chapter 9. The Watsons ask me to track down a family heirloom. My father says there are robberies happening in town, and I see George kiss Martha M. under the bleachers. They pull apart and blink, dazed as if from sunshine. When people die, do they learn everything? Don't you get tired of having all the answers? Silence. I will find you, I say. In my world, no one is ever careful enough to not get caught. Silence. Is my mother there with you? Is everyone dead with you? For the first time, she smiles a little. Triumph blooms. You're a puzzle, aren't you? Chapter 10. Why my mirrors, though? Why me? A series of robberies. The ice cream shop, the record store, and the local diner. After school, I go to duck for fingerprints in the kitchen. The skull in my brain is infinite, and that is how she speaks, filling up the empty. It was the grandson of the owner. I knock over a platter of forks. She speaks from the razor on the ground. I am not dead. I am your reflection. It is not yours. It is me. I am. Epilogue. In the bathroom, I ask, what are you? She points a finger to our chin, our musculature. We, she says. There is nothing else.
Thank you so much, Nancy. That was amazing. I'm so excited to hear it out loud because it's such a beautiful piece. I want to show everybody now, actually, the formatting because it's so spectacular and was such an exciting challenge. And this is definitely a piece that I have to also read on the page. So this is Nancy's piece, and it's very beautiful. And I love the way that it occupies the space of the page. So yes, definitely take a look at it on our website. Nancy, can I ask you a couple questions?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so first of all, how does working at a cemetery influence your work?
I think I love it. I love my job at the cemetery. I think this is the perfect crowd for that, by the way. It does influence my work. I find that I teach at a cemetery, and I think that I teach young kids who come on school trips, and I give them tours, and I'm really taken by the questions they ask, because I think children are just very honest. They're very upfront, and they will let you know if something is upsetting or scary. I really love working with them, and I think that's really influenced a lot of the questions I have about truth, or what's scary and what fear is, and what do we have to fear from death? All of those complicated concepts.
That's amazing. I've never heard of a cemetery tour before. Is it like historical in some way?
Yeah, so it's Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn. I don't know if anyone here's ever come or visited. It
Well,
looks
Anna's
like
from Brooklyn too, so we have some Brooklyn reps here.
I was just gonna write in the chat, is it Greenwood?
It is, yes. Please come by. This goes to anyone here. Please come by. I'll give you a free tour. It's very fun. I love my job there. And yeah, it's very historic, which means a lot of school groups come for their field trips.
That is amazing. I've never been, and now I have to go, and I'll come visit you.
Please do. Yeah.
What did you do for A24? I have a biased curiosity about that.
So do you know have people seen the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Yes.
It's like it was
of course.
So the director actually read my book, as he said it was for research. One of the Daniels, not both of them, one of the Daniels read my book. I never talked to him directly, but I was very flattered, and they actually took a poem from my collection, Favorite Daughter, and they published it in this anthology that they put out in conjunction with the act.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh.
It
That's
was. I'm really
awesome.
lucky. Yeah.
That is so cool. That is not what I expected you to say.
Yeah.
Also, I think everybody has seen that movie, so I'm very excited for you that you got a chance to put your work out there in such an amazing way. That's awesome.
Thank
And
you.
also so great for us because it's like horror and poetry. I mean, in A24, what could be better? That's so great.
Exactly.
Do you like horror movies?
I love horror movies.
Okay, I
Yes.
gotta ask, what's your favorite?
I love The Witch, Robert Eggers' The Witch, A24. Speaking of A24 horror, I really love, I've been rewatching Midsummer recently. That's not recently. I've been rewatching it since it came out, I should say. It's a comfort of mine. I think those are my top two. I really want to get in more into like and if anyone has recs here, I would love to take them. And I would love to get in more into indie horror more. I think like there's so much I don't even know that I don't know. So I would love to find out more about that.
I just watched an amazing movie called The Hatching the other day, which I feel like I was a little late to, but it was really, really good.
Writing
Yeah,
that down.
it was
Thank you.
awesome. I love that Midsommar is your comfort movie. Very, very cool.
Oh yeah. I feel like I'm very susceptible to the fact that I love that movie, and the fact that I rewatch it so often as comfort means that I'm very susceptible to cults. Like I think I fully would have given myself over to a cult in Europe in the rural mountains. Like I really would have fallen for anything. Yeah.
Well, especially when it looks that good. I mean,
Exactly.
very pretty. So why not? And Tori has all the recommendations. I know that to be true of Tori.
Please,
So
please send them. Yay. Thank you. I would love to take them. Thank you.
anybody have other questions for Nancy? All right, so our last presenter, Courtney, couldn't be with us today. She had something come up, but this has been such an incredible pleasure and honor. I feel so lucky to be working with our contributors and Nancy and Anna and Kendall. Thank you so much for being here and for being part of our first issue of Bloodletter. I just feel so privileged to be able to publish your work. It's spectacular. And for each one of you, when I got your pieces, there was no way that I wasn't going to publish them, even if we didn't have room. And also Tori. Tori's here, and Tori's presenting. Tori, which day are you presenting? Tomorrow. So if you want to hear Tori's presentation, come to our event tomorrow. Hi, Tori. Tori's got an awesome lecture tomorrow that I'm excited for. And yeah, thank you all for watching and for being part of this. And we have another event at the same time tomorrow night and Thursday night. So if this is a good time for you, please come. We'd love to see you there. And yeah, thanks so much. Have a good night, everybody.